This number, 192.168.1.1, might look random, but it's actually an address. Every device you own, your phone, your laptop, your printer, has one of these assigned to it, and it's how that device gets found on a network. This is called an IPv4 address.
Let's start off by establishing what an IP version 4 address is in practical terms. All of these are examples of IP version 4 addresses. An IP version 4 address is always 4 sets of numbers separated by a decimal. So 192.168.1.1, that is an IP version 4 address. An IP address, short for Internet Protocol, is just a series of numbers that identifies any device on the network. Computers, or any device we should say, will use IP addresses to communicate with each other, whether that's over the internet, if it's on the same network or other networks, any type of communication by any of these devices, whether it's a laptop or desktop, if it's a phone, if it's a mobile phone, a printer, a server, all of these devices that communicate with each other will do so with an IP address. In this example, I have two PCs, PC1 and PC2. I have a phone, a printer, and a server, and you'll notice all of these have IP addresses directly assigned. So if I want to communicate between PC1 and PC2, we will communicate using these IP addresses. But what connects these devices to each other? This is a switch. A switch will connect any network device. That could be computers, printers, wireless access points in your network to other devices, and it allows them to talk to each other. It does this by exchanging something called frames. So if I'm on PC1 and I want to access something on PC2, it simply goes to the switch and it goes to PC2. It's like my connection point. There are many different types of switches. You can find switches that may have as few as 4 ports that are inexpensive. You can find switches that have 96 ports or hundreds of ports that may cost tens of thousands of dollars.
And depending on the switch, it can be very configurable. Something we talk about later in the coming videos will be how switches can actually be managed. But for now, we want to think of it as a hardware device. That's just connecting these computers to each other.
Now, I'm sure some people are thinking, well, if I have an access point, then I'm not connected to a switch. Well, yeah, you are. If I have a mobile device here, or a wireless device, I'll say, and that device connects to an access point, your access point is going to connect directly to the switch. So you are still passing data through the switch, even though you yourself are wireless, you are just connecting to it via an access point. If you're on a smaller network like a home network and the only device you have is a wireless router, it simply means that device has this capability natively built into it. So even though it may not be called the switch, it still has that switching function, just embedded in one device. I also have a router in my graphic. The purpose of a router is to connect devices on one network to devices on other networks. Now, this could be the internet, it could be another network within your company, just to a different network. When you look at this, you'll notice this router has an IP address, 192.168.1.1. All of these devices here have this default gateway assigned, 192.168.1.1. Whenever you look at the IP settings on a computer and you see the default gateway is always the IP address of a router. Now, it may go by a different name. Sometimes it's called a router. Some places, I know some providers call theirs like a business gateway. It may be called a cable modem, but it has a routing function, whatever you call it. So what happens is anytime I need to connect to a device that's on a different network, that data gets passed through the switch and up to the router, and then it routes on to the internet. So for now, we just want to think of a switch as connecting different devices on the same network to each other, and a router connecting different networks to each other. This is a similar example, but let's say we are at work, and where we work, we have a campus. So we have building 1, and all of these devices are in building 1, and you have another building, building 2. all of these devices are in building 2. These are 2 different networks. Everything over here, you'll notice it starts with an IP address 172. So all of this is on one network. All of these devices over here start with an address 192. They're on a completely separate network. Now, we do break down networking and subnetting and all those things. But for now, we just want to know they are different networks, but I want to allow them to communicate with each other. Well, the way that works, I have my switch on both sides. So the devices themselves all can communicate with each other on their respective network because they are connected to the same switch. When I want to connect the networks to each other, that is where our router comes in. So if you are over here and you're using PC2, your default gateway, 192.168.1.1, that is going to be the IP address of the router itself. So now, when traffic needs to go to a device in building 2, it simply goes to the default gateway, the IP address of the router, and the router has been configured to route traffic between these 2 networks. So now it goes on to whatever device it's supposed to go to. If you're on the other side, you'll notice the default gateway is 172.16.1.1. So this router has just another port on the router, and it has that IP address assigned to it. So if you are now in building 2 and you need to route traffic, it simply goes up to the router through that port and it just comes out the other side. And you are now connecting your 2 different networks with each other. Now do know, this is the most simple explanation for a switch and router you will ever encounter.
Thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll get into MAC addresses and how they work alongside IP addresses to identify your devices. If this helped things click, consider subscribing so you catch that one. And let me know in the comments, what's the IP address on your own device right now?